I'm Emily, 29 years old, and just last Friday, I sat in my Seattle loft watching my sister Lauren's wedding implode in real time. My folks, after our big argument, pushed me to watch it online, so I tuned in. The high definition stream captured every moment vividly, until my screen locked on a scene of absolute mayhem. Lauren shrieking, wine glasses crashing, and my whole family unraveling right before me. Before I dive into how my sister's dream day turned into an internet sensation gone wrong, leave a comment with where you're tuning in from, and hit that subscribe button for more family chaos tailies that'll make yours feel tame. Lauren and I have always had a tricky dynamic, to put it mildly. Growing up, she was 4 years my senior and seemed flawless in every way. While I brought home B-minus report cards, she flaunted perfect A's. When I earned a spot on the volleyball team, she was already the star captain and prom queen. Our shared bedroom was like a line drawn in the sand, her half lined with tidy rows of awards and academic certificates, mine cluttered with concert posters and half done art projects. "Why can't you try to be more like Lauren?" was the refrain of my high school years, my mom sighing heavily while tweaking my quirky outfit choices before family pictures. Lauren would stand there, already flawless, flashing a smile that grown-ups read as kind, but I knew was her smug, "I'm winning" grin. Don't get me wrong, we had our sweet moments too. We'd stay up late giggling about crushes, her showing me how to glide on mascara without smudging it, or banding together when our parents hit a rough spot when I was 16. But those times felt like brief pauses in a constant tug of war where I was always outmatched. After college, I stunned everyone by passing up a job near home to take a marketing gig in Seattle. My parents acted like I declared I was running off to join a band. "What about our Sunday family dinners?" Mom asked, genuinely baffled. As if I'd pick pot roast and subtle jabs about my life choices over a career move. Lauren, true to form, followed the predictable route, moving back home, teaching at the elementary school we'd both attended, and dadding Ethan Parker, whose family owned half the town's hardware stores. They, known each other since high school but rekindled things at a local fundraiser. Ethan came from the kind of wealth that funded community centers and expected wives who chaired the right charities. When Lauren got engaged, our family group chat became a wedding planning vortex. Every day, I'd get pings about centerpieces, venue debates, or bridesmaid gown sagas, and I'd chime in from afar with the expected "gorgeous" or "love it" replies to the flood of photos. The invitation arrived in a fancy ivory envelope with elegant calligraphy. Tucked inside was a note from Lauren. "Really hope you can come back for my big day. I've saved you a bridesmaid spot, but Sarah's my maid of honor." That last bit hit harder than it should have. Sarah, her college friend, getting the top spot over me, her sister of 29 years. Still, I pushed down the hurt and called to say I'd be there. That's when things spiraled. A simple question about the bridesmaid dresses snowballed fast. "The gowns are pretty fitted," Mom said over the phone. "Maybe try that meal plan I emailed you before the fitting." "Mom, I'm not starving myself for a one-day dress," I shot back. "Well, Lauren's aiming for perfection, and the photographer's not cheap," she replied. One word led to another, old scars ripped open. I admitted I felt like the family letdown. Mom countered with digs about my unsteady career and single status. Lauren jumped in, backing Mom, accusing me of turning her wedding into my drama. "Fine," I finally snapped. "I won't mess up your flawless photos with my flawed self. I'm out." I hung up, tears streaming for an hour. That night, Dad called with a middle ground. "You can watch it online," he said, his voice weary from years of playing peacemaker. "We're streaming it for the out-of-town relatives. Might be easier for everyone." I agreed, half out of guilt, half relieved. No tight dress, no side-eye, no questions about why I'm still flying solo. I'd support Lauren without enduring family scrutiny. In the weeks before the wedding, my cousin Rachel filled me in on the details. Lauren had gone full bridezilla, her control freak tendencies on overdrive. The wedding had swelled to 350 guests, complete with ice fountains, a 12-piece orchestra, and personalized everything. Ethan's mom, Margaret, had an opinion on every choice, leaving Lauren torn between pleasing her future mother-in-law and crafting her ideal day. The night before the big event, Dad sent the streaming link with a note. Lauren wishes you were here. No sorry, but it was something. I went to sleep wrestling with guilt and frustration, questioning my choice to stay away. On Lauren's wedding morning, I woke up early despite the time zone difference. Nerves, probably. I put extra effort into my look, even though I'd be alone. Watching my sister's wedding in pajamas felt too pathetic. I slipped into a teal dress I'd planned to wear as a guest, did my makeup with care, and even curled my hair. My loft turned into my own private wedding venue. I strung fairy lights across the living room, set my laptop on the coffee table with fancy speakers for better audio, and laid out a spread fit for a gala. Charcuterie board, chocolate-dipped raspberries, and a bottle of sparkling wine I'd saved for a big moment. Here, to you, Lauren. I toasted my empty room, taking a small sip. May your day be as perfect as you always are. The stream was set to start 20 minutes before the ceremony. At the right time, I clicked the link, wine glass in hand, heart racing with excitement. Nothing loaded. I clicked refresh on the browser, but the screen stayed dark. Nothing loaded. 10 minutes crept by, then 20, and I was just about to ping my cousin when the feed sparked back to life. The camera swept over the lush vineyard where the ceremony was happening, showing rows of ivory chairs tied with soft lilac bows, all facing a grand floral arch overflowing with creamy roses and pale lavender blooms. Glass lanterns gleamed in the late afternoon light, casting rainbow specks across the neatly clipped grass. The lens zoomed in on the arriving guests, and I spotted familiar faces. My mom's old book club friends, our creaky gray Uncle Thomas, who still ruffles my hair like I'm 6, and neighbors who'd seen us through our childhood antics. Everyone was dressed to impress, though I couldn't help but notice my family huddling together, distinct from Ethan's relatives, who sported glossy tans and high-end designer threads. The camera swung to the bridal suite, where Lauren sat at a mirrored vanity in her satin robe, a hairstylist pinning her veil just so. My heart skipped. She was stunning, but her face looked tight. Her smile felt forced as she nodded thanks to the makeup artist, while her bridesmaids, all in matching robes, flitted about like anxious butterflies. Sarah, her maid of honor, kept glancing at her phone, her brow furrowed. Everything all right? Lauren asked, her tone sharp. Sarah flinched. Totally, just keeping an eye on the clock. We're right on track. The camera shifted, but not before I caught a quick glance between Sarah and another bridesmaid, loaded with meaning. The feed then cut to the groom's suite, where Ethan and his groomsmen were suiting up. Ethan tossed back a shot of something golden as his best man gave him a hearty shoulder pat. Through the doorway, I saw an older woman, likely Margaret, Ethan's mom, locked in a heated exchange with someone I figured was the event coordinator. Their words were muffled, but Margaret's finger jabbing at her watch and the planner's frantic nodding spoke volumes. The stream glitched again, and I lost the next 15 minutes. When it came back, the guests were settled, and the ceremony was about to kick off. The camera lingered on my parents in the front row. Mom was polished as ever, not a strand out of place, already dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Dad sat next to her, fidgeting with his tie, looking uneasy beside Ethan's father, whose stiff spine and stern stare reminded me of a drill sergeant. The music shifted, signaling the start of the procession. Bridesmaids linked arms with groomsmen, gliding down the aisle, followed by Sarah solo, clutching a bouquet that probably cost more than my car payment. Then the bridal march swelled, and everyone rose. Lauren appeared, arm in arm with Dad, looking like she'd walked off the cover of a wedding magazine. Her gown was a vision of silk and sparkling beads, with a train so long it needed two little flower girls to keep it in check. She smiled, but I knew her well enough to see it wasn't genuine. Her eyes kept flicking toward Ethan's family, searching for their nod of approval. As they started down the aisle, I shot a text to Rachel. "Everything okay?" Lauren seems tense. Her reply buzzed back fast. "Drama overload backstage, more later." The ceremony rolled on with classic touches, poetry readings, a string quartet, the officiant's thoughts on love and commitment. I watched Ethan take Lauren's hands at the altar, her diamond ring glinting under the lights. For a split second, I wished I'd been there in person. Despite our rocky history, she was still my sister. The camera caught snippets of side action. Margaret murmuring to her husband, Sarah sneaking peeks at her phone under her flowers, Dad's eyes drifting toward the exit like he was plotting a getaway. Technical hiccups made me miss the vows, and by the time the feed steadied, the officiant was declaring them husband and wife. Ethan kissed Lauren with a bit too much gusto for a classy affair, and they turned to face the crowd as Mr. and Mrs. Parker. They looked like a dream couple heading back up the aisle, but something felt off and I couldn't shake it. The camera lingered on the guests. Some beamed warmly, others wore tight, polite smiles. The gap between our families was stark, each side sticking to their own, barely glancing at the other as they filed out. I texted Rachel again. "Missed the vows, what's the tea?" Her reply lit up my screen. "Holy cow, so much." Ethan's mom tried to tweak the ceremony last minute. Lauren's on edge. "Oh, and there's a rumor about Ethan, will call soon." As the crowd headed to the reception, I topped off my sparkling wine, bracing for the next chapter of this remote wedding saga, my unease growing by the second. The stream trailed the wedding party to a charming stone bridge for photos, accidentally capturing moments no album would ever include. The photographer placed Lauren and Ethan front and center, with families spread out on either side. What hit me was the invisible divide. Our family on one end, the Parkers on the other, the newlyweds stuck in the middle. "Snuggle up, folks," the photographer called. "Act like you're one big happy family." There was strained chuckling as everyone inched slightly closer. The camera caught Sarah standing a little apart, still glued to her phone. When Ethan's best man leaned in to say something, she gave a curt shake of her head and stepped away. The mic wasn't meant to catch hushed talks, but it did anyway, betraying secrets. As the photographer shuffled people around, Margaret's voice came through loud and clear. "I still say the lilies were a waste. No one notices the upgrade and they'll wilt by dessert." Mom's voice fired back, crisp and audible. "Lauren picked those lilies and it's her day. It's our son's day too, and we're the ones footing the bill for those flowers," Margaret snapped. Lauren's smile stayed plastered on, but her gaze flicked nervously between the two mothers. Ethan seemed clueless, fiddling with his tie pin, lost in his own world. The stream cut out again. Live feeds are so unreliable, and I missed the shift to the reception venue. When it flickered back, guests were settling into a grand hall decked out like a botanical paradise. Sparkling chandeliers glowed above tables draped with intricate floral displays. A soft light highlighted a massive seven-tier cake adorned with delicate sugar blooms mirroring Lauren's bouquet. It hit me right away that the seating chart was a diplomatic battlefield. My family was bunched up on the left side. The Parkers ruled the right, with a handful of shared friends stuck in the middle like neutral territory. Dad was parked next to Ethan's father at the main table, both looking like they'd rather be at a root canal. I fired off a text to Rachel. "What's with the Iron Curtain seating plan?" Her reply came as the appetizers hit the tables. Planning was a mess. Margaret kept overriding Lauren's choices. Also, Ethan showed up 2 hours late to the rehearsal dinner. Wasted. Huge blow up after. This was all news to me. Lauren hadn't breathed a word of it in our short, curt texts leading up to the wedding, but it explained the strain I could feel even through my laptop screen. The best man stood for his toast, clinking his glass with a spoon, already wobbly from too many drinks. "I've known Ethan since our university days," he slurred, when he was charming his way through every frat party. He paused, expecting chuckles that never came. "Just pulling your leg, Mrs. Parker," he added with a smirk. "Sort of." Margaret's glare could have turned my wine to ice from across the country. The best man plowed on, ignoring the awkward silence. But for real, Ethan's settled now. Mostly. He winked. "Lauren, you've got a solid guy. Just steer him clear of Miami and free shots, yeah?" Ethan let out a forced chuckle, grabbing his glass. Lauren's smile looked so stiff it might have cracked. Sarah's toast came next, polite but guarded, like she was tiptoeing through a minefield with every word. What stood out was how she barely glanced at Ethan, directing nearly every sentence to Lauren. As the meal went on, the camera swept the room, catching glimpses of a celebration growing weirder by the minute. Ethan kept knocking back drinks, his gestures getting sloppier. Lauren leaned in to murmur something, and he brushed her off with an eye roll before turning to joke with a groomsman. During the entree, I caught a heated moment by the dessert table. The camera wasn't focused there, but in the background, I saw Margaret cornering Lauren, her hands waving sharply. Lauren's face shifted from fake courtesy to thinly veiled frustration before she slipped away toward the ladies' room, Sarah hurrying after her. I shot Rachel another text. "What's Margaret hassling Lauren about by the cake?" Her answer came instantly. "Something about the reception timeline. Lauren wanted parent dances before dessert, but Margaret's pushing for a speech from Ethan's uncle first. Total control grab." Lauren returned, her makeup refreshed, but her eyes screamed stress. Ethan barely noticed, engrossed in banter with his old college buddies, his arm draped over his best man. The DJ announced dinner was wrapping up, and dancing would start after the couple's first dance. As Lauren approached Ethan, the camera caught Sarah stopping someone at the doorway, a waiter I didn't recognize, who slipped her an envelope. Sarah's face drained of color as she scanned its contents. She immediately pulled the event coordinator aside, both stealing worried glances at Ethan. The coordinator shook her head, gesturing toward Margaret. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Something's up. Sarah got a note from someone and is losing it." Before I could reply, the DJ's voice boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. and Mrs. Parker for their first dance." Lauren and Ethan stepped onto the dance floor as their song, "Thinking Out Loud" by Ed Sheeran, filled the air. They swayed, Lauren gazing up at Ethan with what looked like a silent plea. He grinned, but his eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. The DJ spoke again as the song faded. "Mrs. Margaret Parker has planned a special treat for our newlyweds." Lauren went rigid. This clearly wasn't in her script. Ethan's face morphed from puzzled to something that screamed panic. The camera caught Margaret beaming with smug satisfaction as she grabbed the mic. "Ethan and Lauren, marriage is full of unexpected twists," she said, her voice syrupy but her gaze sharp. And speaking of twists, we've got a special guest here to join the celebration. Lauren's face was pure dread now. Sarah was half out of her chair, the coordinator gripping her arm to hold her back. My parents swapped confused looks. The live stream, with its crystal clear quality, was about to reveal exactly why my gut had been screaming about this wedding from the start. The DJ's words about Margaret's special surprise lingered like a dark cloud. Lauren's eyes bounced between her mother in law and the doors. Ethan stood frozen, his wine glass stuck midair. Margaret went on, her tone sugary but her eyes like daggers. We've put together a special video tribute for our beautiful couple, showcasing Ethan's path to finding his true love. A flicker of relief crossed Lauren's face. Just a video, not whatever nightmare she'd braced for. The lights dimmed and a screen lowered from the ceiling. Music kicked in, John Legend, All of Me, as snapshots of Ethan from toddler years to college flashed up. My phone buzzed nonstop with Rachel's texts. Lauren had no clue about this video. Ethan looks like he's gonna puke. Sarah was scrambling toward the tech booth, her face tight with panic. The slideshow rolled on innocently, showing Ethan's college days until a striking brunette popped up in the pictures. She started in group photos, then appeared more and more with Ethan, arms linked at Ragers, locking lips at what looked like a sorority gala, nestled close on a snowy mountain getaway. Lauren's bewilderment was plain as day, even through my laptop. Those weren't her in the shots. The music shifted to My Girl by The Temptations, and the slideshow kept going, flashing Ethan with this mystery woman at recent events. A New Year's bash stamped January of this year, a lake trip from March, just 2 months before the wedding. The banquet hall buzzed with whispers. Dad started to stand, his face stormy. The camera caught Sarah finally breaking free from the coordinator, sprinting toward the booth, but she was too late. The last slide flashed up, the brunette holding a sign that read, "Congrats, Ethan. Hit me up when you're ready for the real deal. Yours, Sophia." The screen went dark. The lights flicked on and pandemonium broke loose. Lauren stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, her face etched with raw shock. Ethan looked like a guy watching his world collapse in slow motion. "Who's Sophia?" Lauren's voice, soft but piercing, cut through the stunned silence of the reception. Ethan swallowed hard. "An old girlfriend from college. It's nothing, I swear." Margaret stepped forward, her chin high. "Sophia Bennett, from the Bennett family in Westport. They run the logistics empire. She and Ethan were together for 4 years, practically promised to each other before this rushed engagement." "Rushed engagement," Mom echoed, now on her feet. "They've been engaged for 18 months. 18 months is hardly enough to know if someone suits a family like ours," Margaret shot back. "Sophia comes from the right circles. She gets Ethan's obligations to the Parker legacy." Ethan finally spoke, his voice raw. "Mom, what did you do? We talked about this." "I'm saving you," Margaret hissed, loud enough for the mic to pick up. "This marriage is a disaster. The prenup isn't even properly signed." Lauren's head jerked up. "What prenup?" The silence that followed could have stopped time. My phone blew up with texts from Rachel. Lauren had no idea about a prenup. Ethan's family lawyer showed up with papers yesterday. Lauren wouldn't sign without reading them. Ethan swore he'd shred them after the ceremony. I watched Lauren's face shift as the truth sank in, her eyes blazing with betrayal. "You were never going to destroy those papers, were you?" she said. "This whole wedding was just a show to keep your parents happy while you kept your options open." Ethan reached for her. "Babe, it's not like that. My family's company, the trust fund, it's complicated." "And Sophia?" Lauren's voice broke. "Is she complicated too?" "That's done," Ethan said, but his eyes darted toward the doors. Sarah reached Lauren's side, whispering frantically. Lauren's eyes widened. She's here, Lauren murmured, the table mic catching it all. Sophia's here. As if on cue, the banquet hall doors swung open. The brunette from the photos stood there in a crimson gown that screamed defiance of every wedding guest etiquette rule. Behind her, the Parker family lawyer clutched a folder, no doubt stuffed with the disputed prenup papers. I wished I could leap through my screen to stand by my sister's side. Instead, I sat helpless as Lauren's perfect day shattered completely. Ethan's brother shot to his feet, pointing at Lauren's hand. She can't walk off with Nana's ring. That's a Parker heirloom, not for. Not for what? Dad cut in, his face red with fury. Not for my daughter, the woman your brother just married? Ethan's father piled on. That ring's worth more than your daughter's teaching paycheck for 20 years. It stays with us. I'm your family now, Lauren said, her voice steadying as anger overtook shock. Or did everyone forget we just said our vows? Margaret let out a sharp laugh. Vows mean something when the marriage is legitimate. This was clearly a mistake Ethan was pushed into. Pushed? Mom gasped. Your son chased Lauren for a year. He proposed at our family's 4th of July barbecue. Sophia glided deeper into the hall, her face a blend of smug victory and crocodile tears. Ethan, sweetheart, you don't have to go through with this mess, she said. Your folks know you made a mistake. The private plane, waiting if you want to bolt. A plane? They had an exit strategy lined up. Ethan stood caught between two realities, his eyes darting from Lauren to his parents to Sophia, finally grabbing his wine glass and downing it in one go. I need a breather, he mumbled, stumbling toward Sophia instead of his new wife. Sarah slipped Lauren the envelope she'd gotten earlier. Lauren tore it open, scanning the contents, her face going ghostly white. Hotel receipts? Lauren's voice climbed, sharp with betrayal. You've been sneaking off with her during our entire engagement. Those work trips, Ethan whipped around. Who gave you those? That's personal. Personal like our marriage? Lauren fired back. Personal like the prenup you hid from me? Ethan's father stepped in, his voice booming. That prenup safeguards centuries of Parker wealth. Did you honestly think we'd let it fall to a preschool teacher from the wrong zip code? Dad shot to his feet, fists clenched. That's enough. Lauren, we're out of here. This whole family's poison. What unfolded next was so wild the live stream struggled to keep up. Lauren, my poised, always perfect sister who'd never caused a stir, let out a primal yell of fury. She ripped the glittering diamond ring off her finger and hurled it at Ethan's face. He dodged, and the ring flew past, splashing into a wine fountain with a dramatic plunk. Ethan's brother dove for it, crashing into a server balancing a tray of flutes. Glass shattered across the dance floor, sparkling like broken dreams. Ethan's father grabbed Lauren's arm. Where do you think you're going? This wedding cost us a fortune. Dad shoved him back. Keep your hands off my daughter? The two fathers, both pushing 70 and old enough to know better, started wrestling like high schoolers. Margaret shrieked. Mom snatched the cake knife, not to attack, but the sight was jarring all the same. Lauren stood in the eye of the storm, her wedding gown glowing under the lights, looking like a saint in a scene from Hades. Tears streaked her cheeks, but her face held a spark of realization, like she was finally seeing the truth. The event coordinator was scrambling to herd guests out. The DJ had bailaid on his booth, but the camera operator, bless their grit, kept rolling. Amid the crashing glass and shouted accusations, Lauren's eyes locked onto the camera, straight at me, her expression screaming, "You were smart to skip this." At the peak of the madness, with my sister's tear-soaked face front and center, the video froze. The screen held that devastating image. Lauren's anguish, my parents struggling to reach her, Ethan glancing at Sophia, and shards of glass glinting on the floor like the wreckage of her promises. I mashed the refresh button. Nothing. Restarted my browser. Still stuck, rebooted my whole laptop. The stream stayed locked on that gut-wrenching scene, a perfect snapshot of a marriage that fell apart before it even started. For an excruciating 30 seconds, my screen was trapped on that disaster. Then, out of nowhere, the live stream jolted back to life, plunging me back into the chaos, which had only gotten worse. Sophia had now fully entered the hall, standing with the swagger of someone who thought she owned the place. Her crimson dress shimmered as she closed in on Ethan, who stood paralyzed, torn between his past and his vows. Ethan, Sophia's voice rang out, picked up by a mic left on a nearby table. Your mom reached out last week. She said you were making a huge mistake. Lauren's head snapped toward Margaret. You called her. You invited her here. Margaret adjusted her tailored blazer, not a hint of regret. Sophia, been in our circle for years. She understands the Parker family's place in the world. Place in the world? Lauren echoed, incredulous. Is that all you care about? Not if your son's happy? Happiness fades, Margaret said, her voice icy. Legacy endures. The Parkers have built something that spans generations, and we need the right alliances to protect it. Ethan's father nodded sharply. A deal with Bennett Logistics would boost our portfolio by a third, he said. It's just smart business. Business? Mom's voice climbed with disbelief. This is your son's marriage, not a stock merger. Sophia edged closer to Ethan, resting a perfectly manicured hand on his arm. Ethan, darling, you know we're endgame, she cooed. This was just your wild streak acting up. Your trust fund safe, your spot at the company secure. We can jet off to Fiji tonight like we planned for your birthday. Lauren's face crumpled, her eyes wide with betrayal. Your birthday trip, the one you ditched for a work crisis? You were going with her. Ethan finally spoke, his words thick from too much wine. It's not what you think. Sophia and I are just friends now. Sophia's laugh tinkled, slicing through the room's tension like a knife. Friends who kept the penthouse at the Grand Regency booked twice a month? I've still got the key card you gave me, love. That was the moment Lauren snapped, not with tears or a breakdown, but with a fire I'd never seen in my polished, perfect sister. You absolute liar, she roared, her voice so raw it crackled through the live stream. I gave you everything. I dyed my hair because your mom said brunettes photograph better for family portraits. I left the teaching job I loved to join your family's charity board. I let you convince me my friends were refined enough for our wedding. Ethan stumbled back, clearly rattled by this fierce version of Lauren. You're causing a scene, he hissed. A scene? Lauren's laugh was sharp, almost unhinged. You want a scene. She snatched a wine bottle from a nearby table and dumped it over his head. Sparkling wine drenched his tailored suit as guests gasped in shock. Ethan sputtered, wiping his face. Are you crazy? This suit cost 6 grand. Bill me, Lauren shot back. Or better yet, ask Sophia to pay for it. She can cover it with all the presents you've been buying her from our shared account. Sarah stepped up, resting a calming hand on Lauren's shoulder. I tried to warn you, she said softly. When I saw those charges on the credit card statement you asked me to review, I knew something was off. Lauren turned to her maid of honor. How long have you known? Just a few days, Sarah admitted. I hired a private investigator after spotting the hotel charges. The proof came in an hour before the ceremony. I was still figuring out how to break it to you. Margaret stormed toward them, her face like thunder. How dare you snoop on my son? That's the issue with people like you. No sense of decorum or boundaries. Boundaries, Sarah scoffed. Your son was cheating on his fiancée. He doesn't deserve boundaries. Margaret reached for Lauren's bouquet, left on the head table. This sham is done. Ethan, we're leaving. The lawyer has the annulment papers ready. Dad finally reached Lauren, wrapping a protective arm around her. Don't touch my daughter's things. Ethan's father stepped in, his face red, maybe from anger, maybe from his sixth whiskey. Get your people in line, George. This whole circus is beneath us. Beneath you, Dad barked back. Your son betrayed my daughter, your wife set up this ambush, and we're beneath you. What happened next was so fast the camera could hardly keep up. Ethan's father waved a hand dismissively, maybe accidentally shoving Dad back. Dad, who's never been one for fights, reacted on instinct, pushing back hard enough to send Ethan's father staggering into the dessert table. The towering seven-tier cake teetered once, twice, then crashed down in a slow-motion avalanche of vanilla frosting and strawberry filling, splattering the floor with a thud that hushed the room for a moment. In that brief silence, Sophia's laugh rang out. Well, that's poetic. Lauren spun toward her, eyes blazing. You think this is a joke? You helped ruin someone's wedding day for what? A guy who can't stay loyal? A family that cares more about money than people? Congrats on your catch. Sophia's smirk wavered. Ethan and I have history. We're meant to be. This marriage was just Ethan's final fling before settling down, right? Sophia said, her voice low and venomous, with his mother's hand-picked match. Margaret pushed between them, her face like stone. That's enough out of you, Lauren. The car's ready, Ethan. Sophia, meet us at the estate. Ethan, still dripping wine, glanced uncertainly between the women, his expression a mix of panic and indecision. We should all cool off and talk this out privately, he muttered. Talk what out? Lauren demanded, her voice sharp with betrayal. Your secret life? The prenup you kept from me? The fact that this whole wedding was a sham while you waited for your mom's real pick to step in. She turned to the stunned guests, many filming the chaos on their phones. Thank you all for coming to what I thought would be my happiest day, she said, her voice trembling but clear. Instead, you're watching it crash and burn. The bar is still open while I go file for the quickest divorce in history. Lauren reached for her bouquet, which Margaret was still gripping tightly. They tugged back and forth briefly before Lauren wrenched it free and flung it straight at Ethan's face. Unlike the ring, this hit its mark, lilies and lavender bursting on impact. The hall exploded in noise again. Ethan's brother lunged toward Lauren, yelling about family humiliation. Sarah cut him off with a sharp elbow, sending him crashing into a table of wine glasses that shattered in a glittering cascade across the floor. Mom grabbed Lauren's hand, pulling her toward the exit. Sophia stepped in their path, and in the scuffle, her crimson dress snagged on a chair, ripping dramatically up the thigh. She yelped as if she'd been stabbed. The camera operator, with an ironclad commitment to capturing every second of this train wreck, zoomed in on Lauren's face as she glanced back at the wreckage. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her expression held something beyond heartbreak, a fierce clarity, like she'd just dodged a lifetime of deceit. Then, at the height of the madness, with Lauren front and center and chaos behind her, the live stream froze again, this time for good. My screen locked on that gut-punching image. Lauren's tear-streaked face, her wedding gown slightly torn at the sleeve, her eyes a mix of devastation and defiance. Behind her, glass littered the floor, cake splattered like a crime scene, Ethan caught between his mother and his ex, and my parents shielding Lauren from more hurt. I hammered the refresh button. Nothing. Switched browsers, rebooted my router, even tried my phone. The image stayed stuck, a haunting symbol of the day, beauty shattered in a heartbeat, the polished surface cracked to expose the ugly reality beneath. I felt torn between helplessness and relief, heartbroken for my sister, but so grateful I wasn't in that nightmare in person. Staring at Lauren's frozen face, I realized this was the moment my perfect sister's perfect world broke apart. And oddly, it might have been the realest moment our family had ever faced. For 3 agonizing hours after the stream died, I called every family member, getting no answers. My text to Rachel sat unread. Calls to mom and dad went straight to voicemail. Even the venue's line was dead. I paced my Seattle loft, still in my teal dress, my mind spiraling with worry and guilt. Could I have stopped this disaster if I'd been there? Or at least stood by Lauren through it? Her tear-soaked face haunted me every time I blinked. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. I dove for it, hopping for family news, but it was just an X alert. Parker wedding fiasco was trending in my hometown. My stomach churned as I opened the app to see clips from guests' phones going viral. 15 seconds of Lauren dousing Ethan with wine, Dad shoving Ethan's father into the cake, Sophia's dramatic entrance. Each snippet added to the humiliating public record of my sister's worst day. The comments were vicious, strangers treating our pain like a reality show. I deleted the app, feeling nauseous. This wasn't just a family crisis anymore, it was a public circus. At 2:09 a.m., Rachel finally called. "Oh my gosh, Emily," she blurted before I could speak. "It got so much worse after the stream cut." "Is Lauren okay?" I demanded. "Where is she?" "She's with your parents at their place. Lawyers took everyone's phones after the cops showed up." "Cops?" I nearly shouted. "Ethan's brother tried to physically stop Lauren from leaving. Your dad stepped in, and it spiraled from there. No arrests, but both sides were throwing around threats of lawsuits. The Parkers are in full damage control mode." I sank onto my couch, overwhelmed. "Rachel, I need the whole story. Start from the top." Over the next hour, she pieced together the chaos I'd missed. The trouble had been brewing long before I realized, stretching back months. Ethan's family had taken over every detail of the wedding, steamrolling Lauren's preferences with Margaret's demands. The guest list had swollen with Parker business associates Lauren didn't even know. She was miserable for weeks, Rachel told me over the phone. But Lauren kept saying it'd all be worth it once they were married and the stress eased up. Then, just 2 days before the ceremony, the Parker family lawyer showed up with a prenup that would have left Lauren with nothing in a divorce, no matter who was at fault. She was floored. Ethan claimed it was just a formality his parents pushed for, Rachel explained. He swore he'd rip it up after the vows. Lauren was skeptical but didn't want to call off the wedding at the last second and face public humiliation. What Lauren didn't know was that Ethan's family had been in touch with Sophia the whole time they were engaged. The Bennett family's logistics empire was a prime merger opportunity, and Margaret never stopped hoping Ethan would rekindle things with Sophia. Sophia was supposed to cause a scene at the chapel during the Speak Now moment, Rachel revealed. Margaret set it up, but Sophia bilayed until the reception. As for Ethan, the proof of his betrayal was undeniable. Bank statements showed hotel charges peppered throughout their engagement. Phone logs revealed constant texts and calls with Sophia. He'd even booked a trip to Fiji, the same place he'd promised Lauren for their honeymoon. Sarah uncovered it all last week while helping Lauren sort wedding expenses, Rachel said. She hired a private investigator, and the evidence landed just before the ceremony. Sarah was still figuring out how to break the news when Margaret dropped that slideshow bomb. The most jaw-dropping part was the Parkers' real intentions. The prenup included clauses dictating Lauren's duties as a Parker wife, hosting a set number of galas, keeping up specific social ties, even meeting weight and style standards. It was less a marriage contract and more a job application, Rachel said, and Lauren nearly signed it because she loved him so much. Around 2 a.m., my phone pinged with a text from Mom. "Lauren's finally asleep. Ethan's family is threatening lawsuits over reputational damage. We'll call tomorrow. Ignore the internet." I barely slept, haunted by images of broken glass and torn wedding gowns. At 7 a.m., Dad called. "Dad," I choked out, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." "Honestly, Emily," he sighed, "you dodged a bullet. You sensed something off about Ethan that we all missed." That wasn't entirely true. I hadn't pegged Ethan specifically. I'd just been avoiding family chaos, but this wasn't the time to correct him. "How's Lauren?" I asked. Crushed, mortified, but also weirdly relieved, he said, lowering his voice. "Between us, I think she's been unhappy for months but couldn't face it. The Parkers changed her. She quit teaching for their foundation, altered her look to match their image. Your mom and I stayed quiet because she seemed so set on making it work." Guilt twisted in my chest. I'd noticed those changes during our video chats but hadn't pushed when Lauren brushed me off. Later that morning, Lauren called, her voice raspy from tears but steadier than I expected. "You were right to stay away," she said right off the bat. "That wasn't a wedding, it was a corporate deal dressed up as one, and I was too blind to see it." "Lauren, I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have been there for you." "To do what? Drench Ethan's other side with wine?" She tried to laugh, but it broke into a sob. "Honestly, it might have been nice to have someone there who wasn't fooled by the Parkers from the start." We talked for almost 2 hours. Lauren admitted she'd sensed issues for months but had sunk so much into the relationship, emotionally, socially, professionally, that admitting it was a mistake felt impossible. She left her teaching job for a role at the Parker Foundation, moved into their family owned penthouse, even changed her hair color when Margaret suggested redheads stood out better in society photos. "I thought once we were married, I'd get the old Ethan back," she said. "The guy who'd surprise me with daisies and spend weekends helping me grade papers. But that guy vanished the second his family got involved." The hardest confession came near the end. "The worst part? Sophia wasn't even a shock," Lauren said. "I saw messages months ago, but Ethan swore they were harmless, that she was just hung up on him. I chose to believe him because the truth hurt too much." When we hung up so she could rest, I sat in stunned silence, processing how my confident, perfect sister had been slowly manipulated into questioning herself, compromising her principles, and accepting treatment she'd once never tolerated. That evening, Mom called with news that made my blood boil. "The Parkers' lawyer contacted us," she said, her voice tight with fury. "They're demanding Lauren return all wedding gifts, saying she caused the chaos, so she's not entitled to them. They also want her to sign an NDA about the whole ordeal." "That's insane," I snapped. "They engineered this disaster." "I know," Mom said. "They're threatening a defamation suit if she doesn't agree. They've already gotten those social media clips pulled with copyright claims." The final slap came from Ethan himself, a text to Lauren claiming he was caught in the middle and pressured by both sides, suggesting they meet to talk calmly. Lauren's reply was one word: "No." As night fell on what should have been my sister's first day as a wife, I made up my mind. I booked a flight from Seattle to Portland for the next morning. Watching from afar wasn't enough anymore. My sister needed me, and this time I wouldn't let her down. The 5-hour flight gave me time to rehearse what I'd say to Lauren. Should I apologize for skipping the wedding? Admit I'd watched her humiliation in high def? Confess that, for a fleeting moment, I felt a twisted sense of validation when her perfect life cracked, exposing the kind of mess my own life had always worn openly? In the end, none of my planned words mattered. When Lauren met me at the airport, dressed in sweats with her hair in a messy bun, a look I hadn't seen since we were teens, words weren't needed. I dropped my bag and pulled my sister into a hug, feeling her tremble with sobs against me. "I've got you," I whispered into her hair. "I'm here now." Our parents' house had turned into a war room. The kitchen table was buried under legal papers, the unsigned prenup, wedding vendor contracts with unpaid balances, and cease and desist letters from the Parker family lawyer. Mom handled calls from worried relatives, while Dad consulted a lawyer friend about Lauren's next steps. That first night back, after Mom and Dad went to bed, Lauren and I sat on the back deck swing just like when we were kids. The night was crisp, fireflies flickering in the dark. "I should have listened to you," Lauren said, breaking our quiet moment. "About what?" I asked. "Everything, moving away, being myself. Drawing lines with Mom and Dad, not chasing perfection every second." Lauren curled her legs up, hugging her knees. "You always saw right through the Parker charade. You questioned Ethan's sudden job promotions, wondered why I stopped hanging out with my old crew." I shook my head. "I wasn't some wise sage, Lauren. Half the time I was just envious. You had it all together while I was the family mess, making rash choices." Lauren let out a real laugh, surprising us both. "Together? Emily, I was engaged to a cheating mama's boy who wanted me to sign my freedom away in a prenup. My life's a total wreck right now." "Okay, valid point," I admitted, and then we were both cracking up, that shaky, post trauma kind of laughter that bubbles up after too much strain. When we settled, Lauren looked at me, her face suddenly earnest. "Thanks for watching the stream, as mortifying as it is knowing you saw it all. At least one person in my life saw the real story. Everyone else is trying to rewrite it." "Rewrite it how?" I asked. "Ethan's family spreading lies that I had a breakdown at the reception," she said, her voice sharpening. "They're saying Sophia was just a sweet friend there to support Ethan, and I lashed out at her in a jealous fit. They're framing me as the unhinged teacher who couldn't hack their world." The unfairness lit a fire in me. "We've got the live stream saved," I said. "I downloaded it before it went offline." Lauren's eyes widened. "You did?" "It's on my laptop in my bag," I told her. "It doesn't catch everything, but it shows Sophia's entrance, the slideshow, Margaret admitting she invited her. It's all there." For the first time since I'd arrived, a glint of hope flashed in Lauren's eyes. That could turn the tide. The next morning, we held a family huddle. Mom poured mugs of coffee while I hooked my laptop to their living room TV, playing the key clips from the stream. "I'm not saying we should post this online," I clarified, "but having it means the Parkers can't just spin their own version of the truth." Dad nodded thoughtfully. "It's leverage for the legal fight ahead." "And for my sanity," Lauren added. "Proof I didn't dream up how planned this betrayal was." That afternoon, we sat down with a lawyer who handled messy, high stakes divorces. After watching the footage and skimming the documents, she leaned back with a confident grin. "Ms. Parker, or do you prefer Ms. Carter again?" she asked Lauren. "Definitely Carter," Lauren said firmly. "Ms. Carter, the Parkers clearly engineered this public humiliation," the lawyer said. "The stream, paired with financial records proving Ethan's ongoing affair with Ms. Bennett, gives us strong footing. I'm confident we can not only shut down their demands, but possibly secure compensation for emotional harm and career losses." The next week was a whirlwind of legal meetings, evidence collection, and raw emotional unpacking. Lauren and I slipped back into the easy sisterly rhythm we'd lost over years of drifting apart. I worked remotely from Mom and Dad's place, staying longer than planned. Each night, Lauren and I stayed up late, rebuilding our bond one heart to heart at a time. "I was always so jealous of your independence," Lauren admitted one evening. "You seemed so at ease just being you, even when Mom and Dad didn't get it." "Me, jealous of you," I chuckled. "The star kid who never let anyone down." "Until now," Lauren said quietly. I grabbed her hand. "No way. Standing up for yourself isn't letting anyone down. It's the gutsiest thing you've ever done." 2 weeks after the wedding catastrophe, we hit another snag. the Parkers requested a face-to-face meeting. Lauren's lawyer cautioned against it, but Lauren was resolute. I need to look them in the face, she said, not as Ethan's broken bride, but as me. The meeting went down at her lawyer's office. Ethan showed up with his parents and their attorney, all sporting fake looks of concern. Lauren, dear, Margaret started, her voice dripping with false worry, we're so concerned about your emotional outburst. Stop, Lauren cut in, her voice soft but unwavering. I'm not here to be manipulated, Lauren said, her voice steady and sharp. I've got the live stream footage, the hotel receipts, the prenup, and Sophia's texts to Ethan that she oh so kindly forwarded to me after the fact. The Parkers' lawyer stepped forward, his tone slick. We're prepared to offer a substantial settlement if you'll sign an NDA about the regrettable reception events. Lauren gave a cool smile. Here's my deal. I don't want your cash. I want a public apology to my family for the humiliation you planned, my teaching job back at the school with a glowing recommendation, and all wedding gifts donated to the women's shelter I volunteer at. In exchange, I'll sign a mutual non-disparagement agreement. The back and forth dragged on for hours, but the Parkers cared more about their image than their wallet. They agreed to most of Lauren's terms, desperate to bury the scandal. As we walked out of the meeting, Lauren stood taller than I'd seen since before the wedding. I think that's what healing feels like, she said softly, a weight lifted from her shoulders. 6 months later, life had changed for both of us. Lauren had relocated to Seattle, landing a teaching job at a forward-thinking elementary school just blocks from my loft. My sister, once glued to our hometown, now dove into city life with unexpected zeal. We started a weekly Sunday dinner ritual, sometimes whipping up meals together, other times hitting up Seattle's best eateries. At one of those dinners, Lauren raised her wine glass. To disasters that turn out to be lifelines, she toasted. I clinked my glass against hers. To sisters who find each other in the ruins. Lauren grinned. You know, I never properly thanked you. For what? Skipping your wedding and watching your humiliation online? I cringed. For being my witness, she said earnestly. Everyone there was swept up in the chaos, picking sides. You saw it all from afar with clear eyes. Your distance wasn't bailing, it was the perspective I needed. Mom called every week, her bond with us shifting as she grappled with the harm her perfectionism had caused. Dad became Lauren's biggest advocate, shutting down relatives who second-guessed her choices. Just last week, Lauren turned down a date with a decent lawyer my coworker had set her up with. I'm not ready, she told me. I'm still figuring out who Lauren is without trying to be someone's ideal wife or daughter. I nodded, getting it completely. No hurry. Some of us take years to sort that out. Speaking of, Lauren said, her eyes lighting up, I signed up for that painting class I've always wanted to try. The one Mom called a waste compared to teaching credentials. Looking at my sister now, her hair back to its natural auburn, her smile real, her eyes free of that constant need to please, I saw something new. We'd both been saved that day, Lauren from a marriage that would have slowly erased her, and me from forever being the family letdown. Sometimes the best view is from a distance. Sometimes a frozen frame of chaos is the opening scene of a better story. And sometimes it takes a perfect world crumbling to reveal the real beauty beneath. So, have you ever seen someone's flawless life fall apart, only to realize it was the best thing for them? Drop a comment below sharing a time when a disaster turned into a turning point in your life. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about family chaos, rebuilding after collapse, and finding yourself in unexpected corners. And remember, sometimes the folks watching from afar see things the clearest. Thanks for being my witnesses today, and I'll catch you in the next story.